Yell a few waves for anybody online or something.
That's what I'm going to do. That scouts for it's places house right there here at South by and Centennial, no more. And it's a bond and the King Supers over there. Scouting and that would be straight young, small, some sense.
All right, let's get going. Okay, everyone. It is 3:01, I guess now 3:02. So I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Definitely by looking at the room, we definitely have a quorum, so we are good to go. Great seeing everyone after the holiday season. So great to see everyone back, and hopefully your holiday season treated you well. And thanks for being here so we can kick off 2025 with our first meeting of the year. Look like we also have a couple of members here today. So for introductions.
Certainly. Would you prefer to go around the room first, or?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Staff member, Janelle Miller. I'm a transportation planner and CAC liaison.
Chuck Theobald, representing City of Colorado Springs.
Kathy Heisey, I represent City of Calhoun.
Ed Dills, I represent Rama.
Roland Rainey, representing at large.
Tyler People, citizen at large.
Bill Bowes from Park County.
Miley Foster, El Paso County.
Gary Sugar at large.
Welling Clark, El Paso County.
Hi, Callie Standard, City of Colorado Springs.
In the room, we also have several PPACG staff members, as well as some folks from Kimley Horn who are here to discuss the site application later in the meeting. Would you like to go through the folks online as well?
Yes, online we have a couple of folks, Phil.
Chris Crockett with Kono.
Maddie Gullickson, City of Colorado Springs.
Hey, this is Abba. Go ahead. This is Abud Vivetti, staff at City of Fountain. My title is Deputy City Engineer.
This is Teresa Cheek at large.
Okay,
this is Andy Muser with Colorado Springs Utilities.
Yeah. Great. Okay, well, thank you everyone for being here today. Greatly appreciate it. Look like we actually need to approve the agenda. So hopefully everyone received and reviewed the agenda for today. And with that being said, if you've received it and don't have any questions, comments, or other discussions, would like to accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Welling Clark, El Paso County. Motion to approve agenda as submitted.
Chuck Theobald, second.
Okay. And any other discussions or comments or questions? Not hearing any and not seeing anyone with a hand raised online. With that being said, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. All right. Next item is approval of the meeting minutes from the December meeting. With that being said, we need to approve those minutes. Hopefully, once again, everyone had an opportunity to do that. Any questions or comments or discussions in regards to the meeting minutes from December? Okay. Well, no questions. I don't see any online. Oh, Kathy. Oh, you did. I didn't see Kathy.
Kathy Heisey, Calhoun. I move approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Miley Foster, El Paso County, second.
Okay. And with that, no other questions or comments or discussions. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Well, we are good there with the meeting minutes. Okay, public comments, or presentations, Field, do we have anyone signed up for public comments?
I do
I-
not believe there are any public in person here.
Yeah, we didn't receive anything prior to the
Okay,
meeting.
and we have none here. Okay, so we will move on. Action items. First item up on the agenda, fiscal year 2025-29, Transportation Improvement and Program Amendment number 2. And we have, is that Jess? All right.
Today we have the FY 25-29 TIP Amendment number 2. This is a request from the City of Fountain to adjust one of their TIP projects, and that's TIP ID 2023-09. And so the reason that this is a formal amendment is because there's a slight scope change within their project, and so that triggers the actual formal amendment rather than doing an administrative modification where we can do things behind the scenes. So because it's slight scope, that's when we bring it to you. And because it's involving their project details, we have ABBA on the line from Fountain to discuss in greater detail should you want more explanation on what they're asking for within this TIP project. So there's no adjustment to the funds, just what they're going towards in the project as a whole. So what they're looking to do is reduce scope on this initial project that originally had multiple locations down to focusing on one location, as mentioned in the memo. And I can let Abba speak to that here. She's online today. Abba?
Hey, good afternoon. Hey, good afternoon. Jessica, can I make a correction? There's 2 sub-projects, not one. So we're reducing the scope from 5 sub-projects to 2. The reason being, again, one of those 5, I'm gonna first name those 5 sub-projects. So the first one is at Fortman Avenue, which we are moving forward with. The second is Fountain Mesa Road, which has already been done. So the south of the roundabout on Fountain Mesa Road has already been completed. So we decided to change the scope and remove that sub-project. The third one is Medicine Bow. Again, we're moving forward with this one. The fourth one is Southmore Drive. Again, we have CDBG funds to cover most of our Southmore areas for our sidewalk and pedestrian ramp construction and reconstruction. So in good faith, we decided to remove this from the scope. And then lastly, we have Old Pueblo from Link Road to Illinois. This project has challenges with property acquisitions. We currently don't have sufficient right of way. So based on our master transportation plan, Old Pueblo, which is a minor arterial, would need about 110 feet in right of way to construct sidewalk. But for example, the bridge that goes over Jimmy Camp Creek has about 70 feet in right of way. So if we did decide to move forward with this project, most of the budget funds would go towards property acquisition. So again, because of challenges with property acquisition, we decided to do a scope change and remove Old Pueblo from Link Road to Illinois from this project. But the 2 that I mentioned, Fortman Avenue from Fountain Mesa to Medicine Bow, and then Medicine Bow from Fountain Mesa to Woodstock would still be part of this project. And like Jessica mentioned, the overall budget does not change. The local match was about 37,000. Federal match was about 132,000 with a total of 170,000. So again, no changes in that.
And my apologies, I was saying one project in the scope, and it is laid out in the 2 phases in the projects in this memo. So apologies for that misspeak. But yes. So if there's any questions on that, Abba and I are here. If not, we're looking for a recommendation to the Board of Directors to approve the amendment. Other than that,
Do we have any questions?
I've got one too.
Okay, go ahead, Ed.
No, the question I have, is there a timeline change and is that going to affect budgeting in any ways? I know as we put things off, inflationary factors come into play.
I can speak to that. We don't anticipate, because again, reducing it down to 2, we're more focused on these 2 sub projects. So we don't expect any delays.
Okay. Welling?
Welling Clark, El Paso County. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand of this project and what you're recommending is that we have 5 initial projects. One has actually been completed, the roundabout, and then that the focus is shifted to achieve 2. The other 2 that are remaining, are they still on the project list to be addressed later on? And is the city of Fountain in concurrence with this effort?
Good question. Thank you for the question. So out of those 5, 1 has already been done. The other 2 are still part of the project scope. What the 4th one, again, because of the property acquisition issues, and since that would require a lot more funding, we've decided not to pursue that at this time and remove that from the list. And then the 5th one, it's going to use a separate funding for its completion. So it's not going to go through the TIP funding.
Welling Clark, El Paso County. So basically what then is it's reallocation of the priority of the funds to achieve 2 dedicated projects. One has been completed and the other 2, they're not forgotten. One is on the list and the other one is proceeding through a different source to be completed. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, that's a correct statement.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Not seeing any? Any other things that you have? Okay, so as a board, we need to accept a motion to recommend and push this to the board. Do I have a motion?
Miley Foster, El Paso County. I so move.
Okay. And a second?
Cali Standard, City of Colorado Springs, second.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we will recommend that and move that to the board. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. So I forgot that. Yeah, I know. Trying to be like very efficient here. So all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Now we're going. Okay.
Trying to get us out of here faster.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And next item, action item is the water quality site application. I know we have a couple of members to do a presentation.
Hey, hi everybody. Angie Martell, environmental planner with PPACG. So site application that we'll be hearing from the applicant today was presented to the Lower Fountain Water Quality Management Association in November of 2024. They recommended that to the SARC. The SARC heard the application and also recommended that to the WQMC. And then the WQMC just heard that January 22nd last week. Thought that was a question. Heard that last week the WQMC also recommended the application for approval by the board. And so that brings us here today, this group. And so I will hand it over to Kimley Horn, who's will present on the application.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thanks for having us today.
My name is Mackenzie Chesick. I am the design engineer for this Las Vegas Street treatment plant project. Good.
Hi, my name is Katie Corkill, also design engineer for this project.
Great, and I think we have a little presentation to share with everybody. It's being pulled up. I'll just explain a little bit about why we're here today. As Angie, oh, I see it now. As Angie just said, we've been to a handful of committees and been recommended for approval. And this committee here is, we're looking for our final recommendation to go to the board for full approval. And this is all part of the Colorado Department of Public Environment and Health, CDPHE, Health and Environment, excuse me. Whenever you are working on a sewer line that is 20 inches or larger, that's called an interceptor, or you're doing any facility work, which we're doing both of those in these projects, you have to go through a site application process with CDPHE. And as part of that process, you need 208 planning agency approval, and Pikes Peak Area Council Governments is our 208 planning agency. So that's why we're here today, and we'll run through this presentation and we'll get any questions at the end. We can go to the next slide, please. Awesome. So project purpose, we are improving the incoming infrastructure coming into our wastewater treatment plant. This plant is located on Las Vegas Street on the south side of Colorado Springs. It's kind of tucked in between Las Vegas Street and I-25, right when I-25 kind of bends over to the east. And this project, or this site, actually takes in a ton of the CSU surface area, and currently the plant's capacity is around 75 million gallons per day, and we are anticipating in the future, 2074 to be exact, that we will be around 122 million gallons per day. So a ton of wastewater coming in. CSU, Colorado Springs Utilities, started looking into improving this infrastructure in 2017. There was a report being completed on various options to improve the infrastructure. And actually, there was a failure in the field in July of 2022. One of the interceptors, it was a 60-inch gravity sewer pipe, just inside of the treatment plant site collapsed. And CSU had to do a couple of $1 million worth of emergency repair and bypass pumping to fix the pipe and get everything running again. So that's what prompted the urgency on this project to get it into design. And essentially what we're doing is we are constructing 10 additional structures and some associated pipelines to have various ways that the wastewater flow can get into the site. So if anything happens again, an emergency wise, or we need to have some maintenance options or anything like that, the flow can be bypassed in a variety of ways to get the flow into the treatment plant so that there's no bypassing, no major bypass pumping needed, and the plant can still function as normal. As I said before, we are planning for 2074 flows, so all of these pipes and structures are planned for that, for those anticipated flows, and we'll review those flows a little later. And as I mentioned before, right now the plant is rated for 75 million gallons per day. CSU will need to update their discharge permit with CDPHE once the flows do increase over that level, but right now we're not anticipating any more flows or increases to the organic load. We are only expanding and adding infrastructure to help emergency bypass situations. And we are eligible for self-certification through CDPHE, and that's why we're here getting approval from our 208 planning agency. Slide to the next slide. And Katie's going to go over some of the required exhibits as part of our site application.
Thank you. So this is one of our exhibits just during the site application, a vicinity map. All of the blue dots are potable water wells in the area, so we just have to call those out along with our proposed infrastructure in the site. And this is our service area map. So like Mackenzie said, we are planning for flows out to 2074. And so this is Colorado Springs Utilities Service Area Map. And particularly out east is where the majority of the expansion will be happening in the future. And so these flows are taken into consideration for planning our structures and our pipe sizes to make sure that we can handle flows from these service areas in the future. So this is a site plan. I'll just do an overview of our proposed structures. So you can see some of the proposed structures are rectangular, some are manholes. We've been calling these diversion structures or junction boxes. It is just a way to facilitate flow from one area to another. Some of these structures are existing and we will be replacing in kind, connecting pipes to them again. Some pipes will be upgraded in size, some will remain the same. So over on the western side of the treatment plant near Gate 2, we have some structures in Las Vegas Street. Those ones particularly are planned to be precast so that we can get construction in Las Vegas Street done as quickly as possible and open that traffic up. And then some of the structures on site will be cast in place due to the particular pipe angles that we are coming into and just the various odor control requirements and all of the appurtenances that we will be adding into these structures. Do you have anything to add on the site plan?
Yeah, could you go back just one? And I just wanted to point out the bypass options that I was talking about earlier. A great example of that is on the Gate 2 left-hand side picture, that very first structure in the street, the rectangular one, there's a pipe going south to the manhole that's inside of the treatment plant. So an example of bypass there is normal flow is just going straight through that rectangle down Las Vegas Street. And if something happened east of that structure, we would close a gate in that structure, open up the one on the south. Oops, sorry. And all flow would come through that southern pipe and hit the interceptor that's inside of the site and be able to go to the headworks, the beginning of the treatment process through that pipe. So, and like Katie said, all of these have been sized to be able to handle the additional flows during those bypass scenarios. Thank you.
So these are our existing and projected flows. As you can see on the right, we have our existing average flow of 36.1 MGD with the peak of 75.6. And we did project out with the Colorado Springs Utilities, Wastewater and Water Planning groups to project out to a peak of 122 million gallons per day in 2074. So these are various pipes and what their current capacity is and what their projected wastewater flows will be.
Great, and to just wrap up here, just a few more points. As we are adding the infrastructure, we're not anticipating any increase in flow coming into the plant. So the organic loading will not change as part of this project. We are going to be providing an upgraded odor control system for these additional structures that will be constructed as part of the project. Emergency storage will be increased just because we are putting in those additional structures and the volume of those structures will be able to hold some emergency capacity. And Colorado Springs Utilities, they will maintain ownership and operation of these elements. The plant operations staff will maintain everything inside the fence, and the collections operations staff will maintain everything outside the fence. And that's all we have for you today. I'll open it up for questions, and I also wanted to know that our project manager with Colorado Springs Utilities, Andy Muser, is also online. So if there's any questions for him specifically, he can answer those too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions?
Yeah, but I'll wait for other people.
Well, we already know Wellen has a question.
We do have Chris Crockett's hand is raised online.
Okay. So let's go online first. Chris, over to you.
Okay.
What's your question?
Hi there. Thank you for the presentation. It's very thorough, and I'm very impressed with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Two questions that I had. In the summary, you talk about this being used to hopefully deal with emergencies. What kinds of emergencies are you expecting? I mean, I know that sounds crazy because if it's an emergency, it's probably not expected, but still, what kinds of emergencies are we talking about here? And
Yeah.
then the second one, could you speak with a little more detail to how the odor mitigation is going to be installed?
Yep. Okay. Great. No, those are great questions. I appreciate them. So to answer your first question of what are we planning for emergencies, and like you said, that could be a myriad of things, but normally in water wastewater world, we like to plan for what happens if I need to maintain a structure. How do I get flow out, or how do I get flow around that structure so I can get an operations staff member into the structure to perform maintenance on it? And what happens if a line breaks? So these infrastructure all throughout Colorado Springs is many decades old, up to over 100 years. So pipes do fail; they collapse, and that's just due to the age of the infrastructure and what's happening on the roadway on top, and all sorts of factors can go into that. So again, what happens if a pipe would break? So we have all of those junction boxes and diversion structures set up in a way that we could locate, like, if a pipe were to break at this location, how would we move flow around to make sure that we could facilitate the treatment process still? And then to answer your second question, more detail on the odor control. So currently, and the traditional way of treating odor control is to basically treat the air. So what we'll do is we'll have a pipe that pulls air out of these structures as the water is flowing through. So there's always going to be a certain amount of air at the top just to facilitate movement. I don't know if you've ever seen a straw where you like kind of fill up the straw and you put your finger over the top and you lift it out of the water and nothing falls out. We don't want that. We don't want the structures to be pressurized at all. So there will always be a certain amount of headspace in there or freeboard, and that's just the difference between the maximum water surface elevation and the top of the structure inside the vault. And so the air that's in there, it's constantly moving. And what we'll do is we'll essentially put a pipe in the top lid and pump it out with a blower. And it'll pull the water, or pull the air out, excuse me, and put it through filtration. We have yet to decide what type of filtration, what type of media is used. All different kinds of media are used: carbon, coconut, all sorts of stuff. So we haven't decided the media yet, but it'll be pushed through media and then released into the atmosphere. But that media cleans the air, treats the air, so the odor component is at appropriate levels.
And do you expect to be able to have enough funds to do whatever kind of odor control is decided on down the line? Is that built into your funding?
Yes, that is built into our funding. And Andy, please speak to this if I misspeak, but I do believe that Colorado Springs Utilities, other than the year's worth of design work that we've done to date, we have budget for construction until 2029, I believe. And that, depending on how construction proceeds, we will work with Colorado Springs Utilities to make the appropriate budgetary adjustments.
Thank you.
Great.
Yes, and that's correct. This is Andy Muser. If you can hear me, yes, that's correct. Thank you, Mackenzie.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, I had some questions about the timeline as far as it may affect the flow of traffic on Las Vegas Street. And then also kind of maybe wrapped up in there, any anticipated service disruptions or anything that the surrounding neighborhood, Mill Street, should, think about or know about?
Great. No, those are great questions. I'll start with the service disruptions first. Our plan is to minimize service disruptions as much as possible. We are talking about the sewer side of service, and we don't anticipate any sewer to be backed up to not allow service to continue to any home or commercial building around the area. We are going to be implementing bypass pumping during construction to keep those flows moving while we're constructing in the middle of Las Vegas Street or on any of the interceptors that we're constructing on. But overall, we do not anticipate any effects to service in the area. But if there is, I understand that Colorado Springs has a public affairs group that will be working with us, and I'm sure that they will notify the surrounding community well in advance of any construction activities. And then as far as the traffic control goes, we do have a traffic control plan that will need to be permitted through the city and the county. And those plans are reviewed and approved and then implemented as such. Right now, our plan is to maintain at least one lane of service of traffic on Las Vegas Street at all times. There will be times where it is only one lane and it'll be kind of a tight fit, but we anticipate traffic to be able to keep moving on Las Vegas Street as much as possible. And like Katie said earlier, we're trying to strategically design our structures to where they can get in and out quickly. So to limit any traffic disruption as much as possible. Great.
What?
Just waiting till last item.
Yes. Go ahead.
So the one question is just for my information. What is a sky flume?
Great question. I did not know what a sky flume was until I started working for Colorado Springs Utilities. It is something specialized for this site. Essentially, on site, it is very flat, not a lot of grade change. So whenever they go through the primary sedimentation process, that's one of the first steps of the treatment process. It actually hits a pump station. That pump station lifts up all of the wastewater, puts it in a pipe, puts it in the sky flume, and essentially pumps it up to where it's at a higher elevation. So then it can drain gravity flow to the rest of the treatment process. So essentially it's just the structure that helps us move wastewater from one treatment process to the next.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is, in your the site plan on page 20 in gate 2, there's one area here that's noted that there's 75 feet of existing interceptor that will be abandoned. Will that be left in place, or will that be pulled out?
Those will be left in place. So we do differentiate between abandonment and demolition in our plans. As of now, we are going to keep that 30-inch line as abandoned. So CSU Waterless, their water design standards, or water and wastewater design standards, specify that abandonment is we put flowable fill in the pipe and then cap it on each end. So essentially it's just a solid pipe in the ground at the end of the day, and we fill it up just so it doesn't collapse in and disrupt any other piping that may be happening. Like I said, as of now, that is the plan, to abandon it in place, but things might change during construction. And that was also to limit how much excavation we're doing. So we are demoing around the areas that we are already excavating for the diversion structures, but nothing more than that, just to decrease the amount of time we'll be in the street. Yep. I think you're up.
There you go, Willie. On to you.
No more questions than anybody else? Okay. Actually, I have a comment, 2 questions to you. The second one, you or maybe everybody here may not be able to answer. And then a kind of a comment to the leadership of the CAC in a way, based off the second question. The first comment I would like to make to you is, after reviewing your plan and the information provided, I want to compliment you. 2 years ago, we would have presentations that half the boxes weren't even filled in as to who was affected and everything. I want to compliment you on the detail and the precision that was put into there, and the engineering aspect of it. Just want to say thank you. It's appreciative to see that. Also, looking at the engineering aspect based off your parameters and assumptions, the analyses look very correct and complete.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
The question I have is, and this is just maybe me or something, but on page 29 of the PDF, which is page 6-6 of your submission and everything, it talked about, good, right there in the middle, it talks about organic loading capacity and then hydraulic capacity. And I was just curious what they meant. To me, it meant hydraulic meant water lifting, and then organic, did that mean solid waste, or does it have a different meaning?
So hydraulic is essentially the amount of flow coming into the site.
Total flow.
Total flow. Yep.
Okay.
And then organic loading is the solids and waste part of the wastewater. So
Okay.
essentially, as time progresses and people get more efficient with their water use, wastewater will become way more concentrated and that organic loading will come up. But as we increase flow, depending on what type of flow it's going to be, so residential is pretty diluted. If you think about water use in your house versus a commercial area, it's going to be pretty heavy in organic loads.
So would it be fair to say that if you combine those two, that would be your total loading factor of everything combined?
It doesn't exactly work like that
Okay.
as far as loading factors, just because the organic loading is like one part of the total hydraulic load.
Right.
So hydraulic load is measured in million gallons per day in this case. Can also be measured in, GPM or any sort of flow condition. But the organic loading is how much of that water is organic material rather than just water.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification
of course.
because I saw the two terms and did not fully understand that. The second question I have is kind of a generic one on your growth patterns to 2074, I take it, 50 years. The question I have is from a standpoint of planning, how tightly is the growth projections of CSU matched or worked with, say, PPAG and other entities, so we have all these different infrastructure projects going on that they all have a common baseline and they're not done individually. That's some things we've seen in other areas that I work in where entity A did this and entity B calculated that, and they were both orthogonal. They didn't match up.
Right.
So I was curious, how well do you integrate that? And, along those lines, and then the real elephant in the room to me is with the legislation coming down from Denver about densification and all of that. And this is the question you may not be able to answer is, how does that affect our growth projections overall? And how does that change it? Do we have safety margins built in or something of that nature? I don't know.
Yeah. No, those are all great questions. I'll start with the master planning piece.
Okay, excellent.
As far as traditionally in water, wastewater master planning, we work with the city entity or the county to understand their comprehensive growth plan and mirror that for the water and wastewater growth plan. For this project, Colorado Springs Utilities has their own wastewater and water planning group. So they are the ones who came up with the plan, developed the projected flows, and then provided that information to us to run with for the design. So, but I would be sure that they are working off of the city of Colorado Springs and El Paso County growth plans that are put out every couple of years.
Okay, so that means the question I need to ask is to the city of Colorado Springs, how are they integrating and coordinating with PPACG and the other entities?
I think that would be a great question.
Okay, no, great. And then with the regards of what the legislation coming down from the state, if we densify, are we putting at risk our infrastructure? And with regards to doing 50-year advancement with what coming with legislation, and this may be a question you can't answer, but do you have any feel of how confident this is or when this will be revisited to see if legislation from the state causes change in that aspect?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. When we're talking about planning out 50 years into the future, we have to consider the policy aspect of our industry. I cannot speak directly to how the legislation will impact us. And that's partially because, it's not in its full form yet. So the city and the county are not quite sure how it's going to affect. I would think they're not quite sure of how it's going to affect everybody yet. But as engineers and as designers, we always have safety factors on everything that we put on. So great example is standard use of a singular person using water in their house is about 100 gallons per day. If you think about how much water you used at your house this morning and yesterday, I don't ever think I use 100 gallons per day. So it's always, our planning numbers are very, very conservative. And so that 2074 number, there's potential that CSU won't meet that until 2080 or 2090 or however the growth plan actually works out, because as Katie said, the eastern half or the eastern side of the expansion is all development driven. It's all single family homes and limited commercial in there. So, Hopefully we don't have another 2009, but if something like that were to happen, then those homes are not going to come into play until much later. So as far as revisiting the planning numbers, I'm not sure how often CSU revisits their planning numbers, but I would expect, it would come on a regular basis. And especially at the treatment plant, we know exactly how much is going through the plant at any time. So we would be able to monitor how much is coming to the plant. And if we get 10 years from now and we're not at the 10-year projection, those assumptions would change and the plan would adjust.
I just want to compliment you on that because you really don't have any control what CSU does, and you were very diplomatic in what you said, and that's appreciated. I understand that what you have to go through. That tells me something. I need to contact some other entities. But I want to say thank you for that.
Yeah.
I did enjoy hearing safety margins.
Yes, we love safety margins.
Yep. And then to the chair and our leadership of the CAC, one of the things that comes down, I mentioned last meeting, was with the state trying to assume control over the local governments, what does that do to our planning efforts? Are we putting limited resources the best we can to figure out how to resolve potential future issues? And then the state comes in, changes the laws, and basically we possibly wasted this effort. I don't know, but it's, if possible, as a citizen, I would like my local government to be made aware of this concern. And I'm probably pretty sure the PPACG board is aware of that, but that the CAC is very much aware of that, or at least I know I am, and I'm sure other members are, because we have limited resources. And the famous saying in government, there's never enough money nor time to do it right the first time, but there is a second. Okay, I'll leave it with that. And thank you for answering the questions as best you could. It is appreciated. Again, compliment you on that extensive, detailed, and from what I can determine, engineeringly and mathematically accurate report.
Great, I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, can I speak for just a quick moment
Yes,
on,
please. Go
on
ahead.
the coordination of the planning efforts? I can tell you, I can't speak outside of PPACG, but I can tell you that when we were developing the land use forecast and the modeling for the PPACG region long-range transportation plan, we did bring in folks from Colorado Springs Utilities, along with folks from Colorado Springs, as well as the other jurisdictions. And our GIS and modeling group in our transportation department have actually kind of set up an ongoing forum, for lack of a better term, grouping together those kinds of folks to hopefully increase that coordination across the region.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. We do have Andy that's on the line still. I did have a question, Andy, and it came up in regards to the 50-year plan. Is there any projected gated assessments to determine how the project is going? I know we kind of already alluded to some of that already, but is there a thought process by doing a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, some type of gated assessment to see how the project is going?
Hopefully you can hear me okay. So this particular project y'all are looking at right now for approval is scheduled to go through, and Mackenzie accurately mentioned, 27, 28. We would expect by 2028 we're completed, and this is fully done. In terms of assessing, are you talking about assessing the increase in flows that are projected up to that 2074 and how the project is performing relative to those? Is that?
Yes, actually, you hit the nail on the head. How the project is actually performing in relative to the infrastructure that's being put in place. As you mentioned before, 27, 28 is kind of what you're targeting for completion. But between now and then, is there any type of planning assessments on how that project is going? And what does that process look like if there are any assessments?
Mm-hmm. A great question. And I would say that one of the things, and Mackenzie mentioned this, that this project is going to enable us to do because of how it's going to be structured, is we can actually close off some of the structures to be able to go in and inspect and maintain. She mentioned a failure that we had a couple of years ago, and that's been one of the challenges in the past is we haven't an ability to dry up a junction box and then inspect it, make sure it was good, and prevent one of those failures in the future. So that's something we will, for the first time, have the ability to do that as a result of this project. So for our operations team, that's very exciting to be able to prevent, because everyone knows that we can't shut down the wastewater treatment plant. This is it. Everything comes here, and gravity does what gravity does, right? So that's going to be, we'll have the ability then to be able to assess those. And some of the things, we'll also be able to assess flows better in some of these boxes, and we call them flow meters. So we can be tracking some of the flows from the various, Mackenzie mentioned interceptors that are coming in. There's some new ones that will come as development comes from the east. And so we'll be able to track even better than we've had in the past what the flows are doing and the increase over time. And so I would suggest that the assessment of that is being able to inspect and do repairs when needed. Hopefully we're obviously going to buy a lot more time on our infrastructure, upgrading it here, and then watching those flows. So I don't know if that captures exactly what you were looking for. Let me know.
No, thank you very much for that explanation. I greatly appreciate that. One final question. Let's go back to traffic. I know you're going to be working with public affairs to get messaging out to the local community. But with that being said, are you planning on having, outside of a public announcement, maybe a town hall or anything of that nature, to explain to that community just how much this is going to impact traffic so they can make appropriate plans and adjust accordingly?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We haven't spoken on specifics with the public affairs group on how we're going to approach that. And that's just because we're working to finish up design right now. So that's right now is that appropriate time to start pulling folks in and say, this is what we're doing. This is the effect. Now, how do we communicate about it? But I think that's a great idea that, Andy, we can talk about in with the public affairs group.
Yeah, and it's very typical for our public affairs team, and I would go with them in some cases to go down the street and knock on doors and make sure they understand what's coming. Because some people don't like to come to town halls, but we want to make sure that they're informed. We know that Las Vegas is a very important street. Even though it might seem like a back road to some, it is used a lot. And so we can't just shut that thing down, nor do we plan to, like she was saying, but there might be some inconveniences with one lane for short periods of time. And so our intent would definitely be reaching out to them, and we go physically knock on doors just to make sure that people are aware, because that's really important.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments or discussion points? Anyone online with any other comments or questions? I don't see any hands up online, so I'm going to take that as no one has any other questions or comments. With that being said, we need to move forward and accept a motion to recommend this particular action item to the board. Do I have a motion?
Well, in Clark, El Paso County, I motion to approve the project as submitted.
I will second it, Ed Dills.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everyone online. Okay. Well, we will go ahead and have this move forward, recommended to the board. And I'm quite sure, Danelle, you'll be really in depth in that process.
Great. Thank you guys for your time today.
Thank you. Okay. So we will move on to our information items. We have the long-range transportation plan update from Danelle.
Yes, thank you all for having me. We, as you all know, have our long-range transportation plan out for public comment right now. Our public comment period is set to end on February 9th. So we would encourage you all to make comments if you would like to do so, or distribute that information out to your communities. We finished up our last open house, our last scheduled open house this morning in Woodland Park. We held one yesterday in Fountain. And then last week we had one here at PPACG and one in Monument. We've received probably a dozen, between 12 and 20 public comments through the online, it's not really a portal, but the online form thus far. I think we also, just for everybody's awareness, the Transportation Commission did approve our greenhouse gas report earlier this month. So we're all on track at this point to move forward with adoption. As we talked about last month, we will hold a special CAC meeting on January 11th, pending the public comment period, or the comment so that we receive, of course, to get recommendation to the board to approve that. That meeting will be held virtually at 1 o'clock. But if you have any issues or any comments that you'd like to make, any questions that you might have, please reach out to me or to one of the other staff members. We're happy to chat through that with you. If you have any questions, happy to address those now.
You mentioned online that you had some comments, roughly around 20. Any comments during the town halls that, stirred up any specific concerns or, things that you should take into consideration?
I don't think there have been any kind of overwhelming kind of comments. A lot of the comments that we've received are, I'd like to see more funding go into a certain mode choice. A lot of, I'm glad to see this particular project or this type of project in the plan. We've talked a lot with folks at the open houses just about the process, about the projects that are included. A lot of we've had a few in-depth discussions, particularly tailored to the specialized transportation plan and just how folks are getting access to rides and that kind of thing. But nothing that we see thus far that would cause significant change to the plan at this point.
Any other questions or comments based on the info?
I'm just curious, how has the participation been at the town halls?
It has been traditionally some of these kinds of plans don't have the highest participation, in part because it is a regional effort, so it's a little less directly impacting folks. Also, the fact that all of the projects that come into us are already vetted kind of through their local processes, that kind of removes us a little bit. I would say we had about a dozen here, and we had about a dozen in Fountain yesterday, and a handful, 4 or 5, both this morning and in the Monument one. So.
Any other questions or comments online? Okay, not hearing. Thanks for that update. And just for clarity again, the ability to access the survey and provide comments, that date is?
February 9th.
February 9th.
Yes.
Okay, so there's still a lot of time for us to try to push the link out there and try to get people to participate. So I definitely recommend that whatever groups that you're a part of and communities you're in, try your best to push that out and try to get some feedback from a lot of our constituents and community members. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And if you need the link, if you need the graphic that shows kind of the information, please let us know. Happy to send that out.
Okay, thank you.
Send it out again to everybody.
Yep, thank you. Okay, next item, member announcements. Look like we have one.
We do have one in particular. Angie, did you want to speak to the CDPHE community outreach that we're anticipating coming to the CAC next month?
So CDPHE reached out to me from, I can't remember his department. Anyway, so there's soil contamination at a mobile home park along Highway 24. the A1 mobile village, and they're working with EPA on a cleanup plan for that. This isn't a program that PPACG works on, but they reached out looking for contacts in our community to help spread the word about the outreach that they're planning on doing and the cleanup project that they're planning on doing. So they would like to present to this group later down the road when they have a cleanup plan developed, which they don't have yet. But they're planning to do their community outreach event here in this room at the beginning of March. And so we're just letting them use the space for that. And they also would like to provide a one-page flyer to this group just to help spread the word if you have any connections on that. So more to come on that, but that's all I know at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the meeting schedule. It was already.
Wait.
Oh, go ahead. You got a question there, Chris?
I've got an announcement.
Okay, go ahead.
May I go ahead and do that now? I just
Yes,
wanted
please.
to let everybody on the CAC know that Kono is currently taking applications for the spring semester, if you will, of Neighborhood University. Neighborhood University is a free course designed to establish a foundation of a civic knowledge for engaged citizens in Colorado Springs and El Paso County. Its goal is to educate, equip, and engage residents to serve as effective community leaders. I sort of feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. You all already know a lot about this because you're on the CAC, but perhaps share it with other people in your circles who would be interested in learning more about how things are done in our government and community as that work gets done. It's a very interesting course. I think it meets about 12 times. And it's, as I said, it's free. If you go to the Kono website, which is CSKono.org, and go to the education page, you'll find out all about it.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
And Mr. Chair, to reiterate what Chris had said, they have riveting guest speakers, such as myself and Danelle. So they've asked to speak, and they do hit on transportation. I've been very impressed by the way they put that program together. So
yeah,
again, if you have the time and the ability to do it, it's a great use of your time.
I'll echo that as well. I went through the program and I thought it was amazing. So yeah, you guys are doing a great job.
It was the riveting guest speakers, though, correct? Yeah. And then, Mr. Chair, I have a separate announcement if the members are done.
Any other comments? Any other announcements? Anything online? Yep, got one.
Gary Sugar at large. This is a question for the next meeting. Could we get an update on the Fillmore to Garden of the Gods highway project on I-25? And just, is it on schedule, on cost? And also an update on the Tejon I-25 work that's being done there. That seems like that's going on forever. And like know when update on the schedule and cost for that.
I will reach out to CDOT to get that information.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, to reiterate the meeting on the 11th, the virtual meeting. Again, normally we just sort of send out the notice and we leave you alone. But again, because we are trying to have the meeting on the 11th with you guys, there'll be a meeting on the 10th with the Transportation Advisory Committee, or TAC, and then hopefully we're going to go to the board on the 12th. We really need to make sure that we have quorum. So unlike other days where we sort of send out the agenda and we leave you alone, Danelle or others from our staff will be sort of like, hey, are you going to be able to sign on and be there? Because quorum is 7. And so if we picked a day and a time where we can't get 7 of you, the sooner we know that, the better, so we can plan accordingly. But again, if you can be there, it is greatly appreciated. There is a reason we're trying to get the plan done on February 12th, which I think we've mentioned before. The plan becomes non-compliant, our existing plan, which doesn't mean it goes away. It just means you can't amend it. And again, our jurisdictions would prefer to have the ability to amend that plan if necessary. So it's not, I'm not trying to scare anybody and say bad things will happen, but it's in our best interest to make sure that we get the plan adopted on the 12th. And again, we cannot do that if we don't have quorum with you all on the 11th. So we are going to be a little more aggressive than we normally are, but we're not going to ask you if your home or car warranty is up to date. We're not going to try to sell you cookies. We're just going to make sure that you're going to be available. So we have the 7 folks for quorum.
Well, I think cookies work, though. I mean,
in that case,
no,
we'll call it a hybrid meeting, and anyone who shows up will get a cookie.
no, thank you for that announcement. And I know there's already been some information that's already gone out, but yeah, keep poking at it to make sure that it stays on the forefront of our minds. Thank you very much for that.
Is that the one that shows at 1 o'clock on the 11th?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay.
So yeah, make sure if you need to do any updates to your computers, software updates, make sure those stuff happens. I had that happen to me today, so I know how that feels.
Correct. The link hasn't been sent out yet, but we will do that shortly.
And again, if it's more convenient for you, if you're in the downtown area, more convenient for you to swing by, and you want to attend in person, we'll be here and you'll count. And
Yeah, exactly.
and let me know so I can run out and get some cookies. I think they're selling Girl Scout cookies, right, Jess? Can I get some from Jess is Girl Scout? I can get some Thin Mints.
And listen to those riveting speakers.
Outstanding. Next meeting schedule, upcoming PPACG meeting schedule. For us here at the CAC, right now should be the 26th of February, correct? Okay. Any concerns with that date? Any comments? Okay, should be good. Okay. Any other updates, Danelle, in regards to meeting schedule that you want to make an announcement about?
I don't believe, oh, one other thing, of course, now that I look over at Jared, we had sent out a survey toward the end of the year because we had a potential request to use this space that could potentially be at the CAC time. We actually won't need to support that group at this time, so we'll keep CAC as it is.
Thank you for that update. Outstanding. So no changes. Good deal. Okay. Any other question, comments, or discussion items? Not hearing none. Any online? Not seeing or hearing anything? Well, the time is 4:04. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
All right.